Welcome to Small Business Casual, the podcast for business owners building something sustainable, cozy, and tailored to their actual lives, not just their Google calendars. I'm your host, Emily Aborn, small business copywriter, lifelong learner, and Jeopardy contestant. From my sofa, of course. I'm here to walk alongside you as we make sense of the behind-the-scenes chaos and trade those stuffy business suits for our favorite slippers. Do you dread swapping senseless words with cashiers and strangers out in public? Do you go out of your way to avoid neighbors, coworkers, or people you know at the grocery store lest you get stuck in idle chit-chat? Do you get heart palpitations thinking about discussing the weather at a networking event? If so, you may have an aversion to small talk. And yes, you might be entitled to compensation. Don't ask me who we're supposed to file with to get what is rightfully ours, because today I am only here to share ideas. Ideas on how to turn small talk big. So we're going to get into whether or not small talk is useless. Is it as dreadful as we make it to be in our minds? Or is it maybe a stepping stone to conversations that matter? And if so, if it is, how do we get into those conversations a little bit faster so that we don't feel like deflated balloons after every single bout of idle chit-chat? Now, I am taking a little bit of a different approach in today's episode. I'm not giving you a ton of my ideas and my thoughts, but instead I did a ton of research. So I'm going to be giving you a curated collection of different perspectives and different approaches that I have garnered for you from far and wide. I have hunted and gathered these. I really missed researching and reporting on things for like my own content. I do it often for my clients, but I really miss it for myself. So I thought I would do a little bit of that today and include like some of the stats and tips from people who, quite frankly, are quite a lot smarter than me. All of the links and references and tangibles are going to be in the extended show notes. So make sure that you check those out. They're always in the regular show notes, which you can find on your podcast player. If you want to dive in further, that is the place to go. I included a lot of things and some things that I don't get the time to talk about in today's episode. So without further ado, one more quick ado. I heard a favorite podcaster of mine recently share that when he does a show, he keeps in mind two people: the people listening now who know him and tune in regularly, and the folks who will discover the podcast and the individual episodes down the road, the tomorrow people, which I was like, ooh, that is a very good, exciting prospect. And it's also a good reminder for all of us to think about the long lifespan that some of these bodies of work we're creating have. It is very, very exciting. So I want to say, whether you're listening in the past, present, or future, it is September 2025 as I'm recording this, but no matter where you are on that timeline, let's just flip to the same page real quick, and I want to make sure that I'm introducing myself consistently. So I am Emily Aborn. I'm a copywriter. I'm host of this show, avid word nerd, born non-small talker, born small talk. I, of course, want to get to know you. I love when you reach out to me as a listener and let me know where you are hailing from, whether it be the British Virgin Islands or Minneapolis, Minnesota, Redding, California, New Hampshire, Virginia, wherever you're coming from. I can see the stats and I love looking at them and seeing like who is consistently here with me every single week hanging out. It means the absolute world to me. I also want to give a really big thank you to some specific people. Andy, Amy, Christy, Nick, Jenny, Dave, Valerie, Barb, and Ree for shouting out the podcast for me most recently. Biggest honor and compliment you could ever give is to share the episode or the podcast with somebody else that you love. So thank you so much. My goal is really to see the small business casual talk go big. And some of that depends on, yes, you sharing feedback with me when you like or love or loathe things that we talk about, also sharing with other people. So my goal really is always going to be to give you more of the good stuff, not waste your time with things that are not helpful or enjoyable. And so keep on sharing, engaging, sending me messages, and we will keep the good times rolling. Okay, now, truly without further ado, let's get into what is small talk. We probably have some idea in our head, but we're going to give you the actual Oxford English Dictionary definition. Small talk is defined as polite conversation about unimportant or uncontroversial matters, especially as engaged in on social occasions. Now, when people say small talk, they could be describing a couple of different things going on. They could be describing that light, casual conversation. It could be when you are just asking unoriginal or formulaic questions. Think of like what do you do? Or how about all this rain? Or how about all this snow? It's also talking about mundane topics just for the sake of speaking. I'm sure you can think of folks in your life who do that. Talking about trivial or fluffy topics. And another definition I think we don't give enough time to, or I actually should say I don't think we have enough awareness around because it's not a true definition, but I think it's in some people's mind a definition, is small talk can be defined as just something that doesn't interest you, something that doesn't interest me, right? So I'm like, that was boring, that was small talk, but really it just means it didn't interest me. So the actual phrase small talk, it's a pretty broad term. It's a little bit vague. I found this great definition by Padilla Cruz, and it said, the definition reads, small talk is a ritualized and formulaic form of conversation, generally consists of simple exchanges, focused on a range of topics that are considered quote unquote safe. So it's safe for people who may not know each other very well to talk about these things. The content of small talk is typically either trivial or unimportant or based on common knowledge, offering plenty of opportunities for all people involved to participate safely. And I really loved that definition because the truth of the matter is linguists differentiate small talk from other forms of conversation pretty distinctly. It's not quite as vague. They show that small talk is talk that does not have transmission of information. So really the purpose of it is just to kind of have like that feeling of solidarity or connection, or at the very least acknowledgement of the people involved. So you can see it is actually quite a quote unquote safe way of exchanging. Pretty interesting when you think about it like that. So I recently heard these two women in the grocery store. They were the cashier and the bagger at my grocery store, and they were sharing about these restaurants and how much they loved these different restaurants in town and the garlic bread and the Thai food and blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I come home and I'm telling Jason, my husband, how nice it was actually to be in that line for just a moment and just be listening to them, and also not really have to participate or talk. They were just engaging, I said, in small talk. And I was like, I wonder what that's like. They probably do that all day, like just judging by the way the conversation went down. I was like, that's probably the topics they focus on all day. And he said to me, maybe to them, that is not small talk. And so then that brought another awareness to me that actually small talk is really a relative term, meaning what could be small talk, safe, comfortable, inconsequential to one person, it may not be the same to another person. What is talk about the weather to one person may be really not small talk to somebody who is extremely passionate and knows every single thing about the weather. So that kind of led me to that question, like, is small talk just stuff that we don't care about? Is it just stuff that we're not interested in? What really does make small talk small? And that is why it started to fascinate me so much, because it gets a really bad rap. And I mean, I told you at the beginning, I don't like it. So a lot of people, I'm not alone in this. A lot of people claim to despise it. And interestingly enough, it actually makes up 1/3 of our daily conversations. So not so small after all. And looking at that, you have to think that it is doing something for us. And maybe it is not all so bad. It's got to have something going for it, right? So I thought we would get into the reasons I think people don't like it. And then we'll get some stats, which I think are going to help to paint small talk in a new light for you. So some of the reasons I think, this is my ideas of why I don't think people like small talk. I have 6 of them. So 1, it can feel like a time waster, right? Like, let's just get to the good stuff. Okay. Tell me about your childhood. Tell me your origin story, not this surface level stuff. Number two, it can make you feel stuck or trapped, depending on the kind of person you are. You might feel like you're locked in, right? And you can't escape the conversation, because there's nowhere to go, really. Number three, if you are a person who is introverted, or you do have a neurodiversity, or you are sensitive or high empathy, or you have a social anxiety, or I don't know, you're just feeling awkward in your skin, right? It can kind of increase the anxiety around all of that. So, and I'm sure that there's a lot of layers in there, and I'm definitely not the one competent enough to be able to address them all. But I do think that those things can increase the disliking of small talk. The other is that you might just feel like you're not good at it. Like maybe you are a person who is, I'm really good at the deep stuff. I'm really good at like getting into the awkward or engaging or like the richness of human life. But you're like, but the small talk, I'm just not really good at it. I'm a person who is not very well, personally, I am a person who's not very well like versed in pop culture and like just, I guess, societal norms, I guess. And so sometimes I can feel like I really do struggle with small talk. Like, it's just like, how do I be normal, right? Like, how do I be just polite and human and give the appropriate answers? Number five, it can just feel boring. And then number six, it can feel awkward. And I think if that's the case, we're sometimes actually just also overestimating how awkward it is or how awkward it's going to get. I had this instance just this week. I was like, oh my gosh, I am being so incredibly awkward. And let me just tell you, that made it way worse. So then I just got very much in my head about how awkward I was being and how awkward I would continue to get from here. And it just made it worse and worse and worse. So there's lots of reasons. I'm sure you have a reason of your own. Actually, I'd love to hear it. If you don't like small talk, what your reason is. But I wanted to share some stats because I think it's going to help to paint small talk in a new way for us. A study published in Psychology Today highlights that frequent interactions with weak ties, and this is those brief chats with your baristas or your neighbors or your cashiers. These frequent interactions are associated with higher levels of well-being and life satisfaction. I do have, by the way, references to all of these, so make sure you check out those show notes if you want references. Experiments they conducted with these London commuters, they had them chat with strangers on trains regularly. Those commuters ended up reporting more enjoyment on the commute than those who remained silent. A 15-day study of 151 office workers found that small talk, though sometimes distracting, led to healthier emotions, greater sense of well-being, and more willingness to help colleagues. That was in the Academy of Management Journal. Harvard Business Review did a study that that shows that employees who had more small talk than average felt more positive emotions and enhanced well-being and were more cooperative, even if it dented their immediate productivity. People who engaged in a pre-negotiation call, aka small talk, they negotiated more cooperatively, shared more information, threatened less, and trusted each other more than those who skipped that call. That was another Harvard Law study. And then last one from Psychology Today, even a mere 4 minutes of small talk improves cooperation. So maybe it's not the arch enemy that we all make it out to be. Now, I will say that I also found some really interesting stats on people who struggle with it. So there was a survey done in 2025 on OnePoll, and they found that 74% of workers struggle with light conversation in shared spaces. Gen Z finding it particularly challenging, with 40% of Gen Z preferring digital chats, even when they are in the same physical space as one another. And despite all of this, people are still recognizing that face-to-face chats improve their mood, workplace morale, communication, and confidence. So it's really interesting how we think we really don't like it, but it still is actually working in our favor and to our advantage in community and connection settings. And in fact, to me, after looking at all of this information, I read a ton of articles. After looking at it all, it started to feel like, you know what, maybe it is a little bit necessary to get to the big stuff. Now, like I said, I would tell you hands down, I just don't like small talk. My modus operandi is like, let's just dive in, which I will get to a little bit later, why my way is definitely not a good one either. But I thought of, as business owners, it's really important to keep it in mind as something that is useful to get into the bigger stuff. So 5 specific benefits, especially as it relates to business owners. 5 real tangibles are, number 1, it allows you to get a little bit of time to get a sense for people. So it allows you to see if there is grounds for that deeper connection, right? You're getting a read. You're, in some cases, tuning in maybe to your body language. You're sensing the internal and the external environment. You're taking the pulse. You're getting the vibe, that kind of thing. For many others, it's important to remember that it can calm their nerves. And in some cases, it can also be what calms your nerves. So some people, while you say, I hate small talk, it makes me anxious, it may actually be very calming for some people. So you kind of want to find that bridge, right? It can also be a bonding tool that allows you to open up to those common areas of interest, deeper discussions, and future conversations. Maybe things you didn't even think you had in common, right? When 2 random people strike up a conversation, it's sort of like, Two different people are living off in their own little worlds. Now we have to figure out how to merge these 2 worlds together in like a matter of mere moments. And so small talk really does allow us to find those shared parts rather quickly in normal ways, socially comfortable ways, I guess. And then we get to use those as glue, and we can also see, do we want those to take us to different roads, different places? Do we want to share something else about ourselves, right? That maybe we also might have in common. Number 4, it really does build, as we heard before, it builds trust, cooperation, and apparently it's good for your mental health, which, that advice you got as a kid about not talking to strangers does not apply as an adult, apparently. So good for our mental health. And then for a whole lot of people, it is just really important to remember not everybody can just take getting right into a conversation. They need a little bit of warming up to get to the big talk. So I thought that was really good to remember. As a business owner, I can't just dive in all the time and be like, let's turn this up a notch, right? Some people need this small talk to get to the bigger stuff. So I don't, however, think we need to sacrifice the big talk and always stick in the small talk zone. And so I wanted to think of some ways that we might experiment with turning small talk a little bit bigger. My personal take is that I can do it, but it's really hard for me to do small talk for very long. A casual, surface level, going nowhere relationship, that is not a relationship I will last very long in. That said, I realize that, tell me your origin story, aka all your childhood trauma, it doesn't go over so well with everyone right away. Now, some people love it and they're like, yes, Emily, let's go. But that is just not the case with every single person. Now, I have developed this habit of pulling out a self-deprecating joke or like doing something really, really awkward or saying something really awkward in the name of kind of trying to disarm the other person or find some sort of connection. That's usually how I'm like, okay, this is how I weed out who is for me and who is against me fast. I will say I'm quickly learning that is not the best approach. I don't need to treat every single person like we have been friends for a lifetime until they give me a reason not to. It can backfire on me because I am not giving myself that pause. I'm not giving myself that full picture, the chance to get a sense of it all, and then allowing whether or not I can trust that person to kind of come through. So I do think that there needs to be a balance, and I think that there are better ways to do it than like just a self-deprecating joke or maybe making fun of your anxiety or talking about how awkward you feel. There are other ways that we can kind of do this creatively. And yes, I pretty much created this episode for myself so that I could research some tips to help myself from doing this all the time. So let's get into some of the tips I found. Most of these have been repeated all over the internet. They're widespread. They're very common. And in those cases, I'm definitely not going to cite those sources. But if I did find something from a specific person or in an article that had like a really unique spin, I'll make sure I give you the reference point. So I have 5 of these. Number 1, active listening and curiosity. Duh, right? But it's true. People are really interested in people who are interested in them and interested in their lives. So curiosity, if it is natural to you, it is your best friend. And if it does not come natural to you, you can start to practice it. It's not just like you're curious or you're not curious. So you can actually work this muscle. Some phrases I really love to use in conversation, they're really natural. You don't have to whip out any weird icebreakers, but just things like, wow, that's really interesting. Tell me more about what that looks like. Or what do you really feel about that? What do you feel about that? The key is really to listen without being there waiting for your turn to talk. So if you are talking to a friend or a colleague, whoever, and they're sharing with you that they just got back from going on a vacation, instead of like just champing at the bit, waiting for your turn to tell about your vacation, which is totally a human normal reaction, instead, take a minute. Ask them another question about their trip. Ask them an open-ended question that begins with like who, what, where, why, when, how. Those journalistic questions will take you miles and they will unlock so much more. In fact, that's how this podcast episode came to be, and then the one after it too, because I just kept asking who, what, where, when, why, how. The other thing about those is that they're not usually perceived as like too heavy or prying because you're simply bouncing off of what they've just shared with you. So it's not like, I've been in this situation too where I feel like the questions I'm asking people, they're like, whoa, stay out of my personal zone. And, these are good because they're kind of baby steps in without feeling like you're being nosy or prying. But really, it is all about the spirit of curiosity and making sure that you're meeting that other person there. Number 2 is to find the spark word. I love this one. I tried to find where I came up with it, but it was AI that gave me the premise. And then I'm like, ooh, I'm going to find something else about that. And I searched and I couldn't find it. So I guess AI gets the stupid credit for this. But it is when somebody says something during a conversation like, oh, I had to drop my kids off at school before this event. And then you ask a follow-up question with a teeny bit of self-disclosure. Like you hear the spark word, they had kids, they brought them to school, and you come up with a follow-up question that has a little bit of something about you. Oh, how old are your kids? My oldest just started middle school. I forgot how fast the years go. So you took their spark word, right? And you said, oh, that is something of interest to both of us. It's an interest you both share. Maybe it's that they love birds, or that they're a Taurus and born in May, or that they have kids or parakeets, or they love the outdoors or podcasts. All of these tiny things can become really big in no time with the self-disclosure swap. Happens for me a lot with books, I'll say that. And notice that in this case, you still haven't spilled any of your deepest, darkest secrets. And you're also getting closer to learning whether or not this is somebody who maybe you would want to spill your deepest, darkest secrets with, right? So you can kind of keep going from there. Number 3 is icebreakers. Age old, obviously. Some people love them. Some people hate them. Rapid fire icebreakers. They kind of make me feel out of control and uncertain and nervous. And I almost always end up answering something that later I'm like, wait, that's not what I meant. Salt isn't really my favorite food. Can I take it back? But in certain situations, icebreakers are great. Small groups, I think it can be really helpful to do an icebreaker. However, I will say it's really helpful to have it written down or have people had a chance to think about it ahead of time. So maybe it's something you give people ahead of time. So maybe if you're going to try it in a one-to-one like networking setting, let's say on Zoom, you send it to the person ahead of time. That way, people that like to think on the fly, they can go ahead and think on the fly. And people that like to be prepared and feel safe in the conversation have that opportunity to do so. So icebreakers are another great way to turn small talk big. I've done it many times. It is an art and a science. So it's all about like finding icebreakers you feel really comfortable with and you don't feel awkward in asking, and also making sure that they are set up like for success. And some of that probably comes from reading the room and making sure that the person on the other side is ready to take on an icebreaker. Okay, this tip number 4 is from Time Magazine's article, How to Get Better at Small Talk and Why You Should. And I definitely included that link in the show notes. The tip is to reframe it in your mind as a treasure hunt. So you dive in and you're like, ooh, okay, what new fascinating or juicy tidbit might I unearth in this conversation? The truth is, you never know where a conversation is going to lead. You never know what you're going to learn. And my motto is you truly do learn something new every day. So what if those conversations are where you're going to learn something new? You can kind of use the conversation as, instead of like this boring small talk, right? It is a treasure hunt. So I'm like, I don't know, what can I find in this? Or another way to go about it is to say, can I find in this conversation a place where I'm able to give them a compliment, a true, genuine compliment, a unique detail I'm able to pull out about them, reflect back to them, and maybe it's something that other people often overlook. I think that's another way to do it. Another way also, it gives your brain a job and you relax a little bit. Okay, and then last one, number 5, and then I have some mini ones. Last one is that you just, this was touted in several places, and it's a really good reminder. You don't have to get stuck lingering on a topic. So just remember that. If you are talking about the weather, it doesn't have to be 15 minutes on that topic. You're allowed to shift the weather topic to something else. So go ahead and say, don't get stuck in the zone of the same thing. You can shift a weather topic and say, so what did you do on the weekends during all the rain? Or what kinds of things have you been working on during these gorgeous summer days, right? You can pivot the conversation very easily and very naturally. And then maybe they open up and share that, I took a glass blowing class, or I've been going to more concerts. And just like that, you've unlocked a new path forward. I really liked that tip. Just remembering you don't have to get stuck on any certain topic. A conversation takes 2 to tango, and you get to be one of those 2. So remember that. And then some very mini ones I saw repeated in a lot of places. Use your sense of humor. I think that goes a long way. Except that lulls in conversation do happen. They're not awkward. It's normal. I think it's like every 7 minutes or something on average. So don't resist the discomfort. Just know that happens. And also small talk happens. It might feel uncomfortable, but it also is a part of normal life. So let go of the resistance around it a little bit, and it does get a lot easier. Respond how you want to be responded to, meaning if you don't like one-word answers or yes or no because you're like, okay, now what? Don't give them. And I think that's a good one because they also might not have anything to respond to or ask you if all you're doing is giving these one-word answers. So respond in the way that you would like to also be responded to. Be genuine, use the strengths, all those fabulous strengths of your personality, your unique brain, your curiosity, and the power of you. Resist the urge to just talk about yourself. Sometimes I will admit that can be my go-to when I get nervous. Here, let me tell you all the embarrassing things about me or mundane things I did today. And I get so locked up in being anxious about it that I kind of forget to ask them questions. I sound like a lot of fun at parties, I know, and truly I am. Okay, another one is to avoid those rapid fire questions or entering into interrogation mode. I've had people do this to me where they just keep asking you questions. I'm like, I'm not even done with the first one. And if that tends to be something that you do because you're nervous or whatever the case may be, or you genuinely are just wildly curious and there's so many questions to ask, slow down a little because it can make you feel a little bit like you're not trustworthy, or because you're not sharing, it can make it seem like, somebody else has that you're prying or prodding, or they can also just be off put by it. It can come in a little intense, right? So avoid the rapid fire questions and entering into interrogation mode. And then the other thing is to practice in low stakes. So next time you get your coffee from Starbucks, or, you're online and you're in the direct messages, or you're commenting on something, Well, one thing I really wanted to do is like an improv class. I think that would really, really help me. And so maybe that's an idea for you. But you can also practice in these little tiny ways. So when you are getting that coffee, when you are in the grocery line, just like allow yourself a couple minutes of small talk. And there does not ever have to be any big talk on the other side of it. And it can be a good way to just start getting more comfortable with it overall. Lastly, I have been personally working on this concept, the field of possibility. I learned this from Angela Lucier. She was the founder of Speaker Sisterhood. And it's a great tool for people who, like me, think that things are going to just end the worst possible way. It's like there's point A and then there's point dumpster. Like either this conversation is going to go amazing and we're going to be the best of friends and we're going to work together forever, or I'm going to say the wrong thing and turn this person off entirely forever. But the field of possibility is large, meaning there is actually quite a lot between that and them becoming between us becoming fast friends and me never having them talk to me ever again or talking about me and saying I'm a horrible person, right? There are so many possibilities with each and every conversation that we have, each and every thing that we do. There are so many possibilities. There's an entire field of possibilities. And so when we paint it too black and white, it could either go this way or that way. That can make us get really, really stuck. So this concept has helped me with a lot of things, most especially in conversations and connecting with other people. But just remembering that it doesn't have to be either sizzlingly amazing or horrifyingly terrible. It can also just be fine. It can be good. It can be decent. It can be a little awkward. It can be perfectly normal. So next time you get into small talk, next time you get quote unquote stuck in small talk, remember why this matters so much. And when you do, it actually becomes, oh, it's not small talk when I look through it with that lens. It's a bridge. It's the foundation of a conversation. It opens doors. It is a path forward to who knows what is possible. So give yourself some permission to try with some low stakes, practice these tips or some of the others that I share in the resources. Make sure to check out the resources, open your curiosity wide, and let's start bridging from the light banter to the meaningful depth that we crave together. Great collaborations, the best of friendships. Oftentimes they started too with these seemingly small words that open those big doors. So if you will have me, I will be your accountability buddy. And at our next interaction, we will report back, okay? We will solemnly swear to take at least one conversation, one level deeper in these easier ways. Mine is actually going to be tomorrow. So I will report back on that. And next week, I'm going to approach small talk from a different angle. How certain small words that we use might mean a lot more than just that little thing. So don't miss it. I hope you'll be here and I will chat with you then. Thanks for joining me on this week's episode of Small Business Casual. If you love the show, make sure to rate, review, and share it with a frazzled business owner that you care about. Because this shouldn't feel like a roller coaster ride, more like a scenic train ride with snacks. Don't forget those snacks.